Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here this afternoon. We're waiting just a moment or two for our other commissioner. Gentlemen, Commissioner Shad is en route, and I think we have plenty of time. We'll wait a few minutes for him. Thank you. I was going to do it.
CRA agenda. So.
Actually,
Is it?
You're right. What do we want? Then when I get to number 8 about the discussion and possible action regarding the CRA, sure. I just didn't want to call him. I just didn't want to call him. Maybe have them at both places. Here comes Commissioner Shad. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I would like to call to order the January 26th meeting of the CRA Board meeting. At this time, the meeting is in session. Item number 2, approval of meeting minutes from November 10th, 2015. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion of the November minutes from the board? Any discussion from the public of the November minutes? Yes, sir, Mr. Walker.
Found something.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. On those minutes, I just want to make point of, there was a question forwarded to the city attorney, and I want to make sure that that clarification is still in there and that's being accepted. I'd like to see later on in the discussion about that, making sure that that's known. Am I correct that in that minutes there is a portion dealing with the city attorney was asked to do some investigation?
I'm not sure if I'm aware of what you're asking me, Mr. Walker. I apologize.
Yeah, I just want to verify that that portion is in those minutes. I saw it in the on the table, but that portion requested the city attorney to do
Okay, City Attorney Jackson stated that he will look at the legal description to make sure it is within the CRA boundaries.
That's correct.
That is in the minutes.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, thank you. I apologize. I wasn't clear on your question. Okay, is there any other discussion from the audience? Would you please call the roll for the approval, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook? Yes. Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so the minutes are approved. Item number 3, discussion and possible action regarding constructing a sidewalk segment along West 10th Street. Do we need staff to come forward and report on this, or is anyone in need of that after the workshop yesterday? Are we all good?
Yeah, I'm satisfied with what we
Okay.
had yesterday.
Would anyone from the public like to hear that report, or are we good? Okay. May I have a motion for discussion and possible action regarding constructing a sidewalk segment along West 10th Street?
Also move.
Yep. Second.
And there's been a second. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. That is approved. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding the residential incentive program application for 305 East 8th Street. Again, this has been discussed in our workshop yesterday. Is there anyone on the board who needs further clarification?
I move approval.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Anyone from the audience who needs further clarification or has questions? Okay, please call the roll, Mr. Schubert.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so it is approved. Item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding the residential incentive program application for 1503 Pennsylvania Avenue. Does anyone from the board require further explanation for this item? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second. Thank you.
I have a question to ask Mr. Jenke.
Okay.
Some of the applications are approved with a $5,000. Others are approved with $2,500. What is the distinction, square footage?
Yes, that's correct. The application, if the applicant wants to request a $5,000 incentive, the building has to have a heated and cooled area of more than 1,800 square feet, and I verified that number with the building department. Not in this case, the agenda item number 4, that was a application that had a square footage more than 1,800 square feet.
Yeah, that one was for 5,000. No, 3 was 5,000. The one we just previously approved was for 5,000.
Yes.
And this one is 2,500
Correct.
as the next one.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Any from the public? Okay, would you please call the roll, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, it is approved. Item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding the residential incentive program application for 304 East 15th Street. Is there any question or discussion from the board that needs explanation from our planning department?
Ben, I did want to ask, are drawings of these structures available at your office, just for curiosity? If a member of the public wanted to see style of the house that's being proposed?
You've got 'em.
I have a floor plan typically attached to the application. I asked the contractor or the owner to submit this information. Sometimes, and I'd like to personally get into the habit of posting some before and after pictures so that we can really see the difference. And I think that would
Right. Would give the,
possibly
maybe
help.
the people that are curious whether they're doing a craftsman style or traditional
Yeah.
or southern. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah, they're in here.
Yeah, the floor plans are, but not the exterior drawings. Show the style of the house.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Can I have a motion for item number 6, please?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. At this time, would you please call the roll, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so that is approved as well. Item number 7 is discussion and possible action regarding a new commercial incentive for businesses directly affected by the widening of Highway 390. We talked about this at length yesterday in the workshop, but if there are any other questions from the board before we ask for a motion? Any from the public? Yes.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Yes, I remember the discussions yesterday, and it laid some of the groundwork for this new program. But it also mentioned the fact that the city, if the incentive was going to be given, it would only be given if the business moved into the CRA. I understood that. It was also mentioned that there's 24 businesses. A long time ago, I was informed that there was approximately going to be a loss to this city of 31 million and above in taxable revenue over a period of time for those properties. The properties that were mentioned were 5 of them, but now it's 24. That's quite a sizable loss to this city. My question here is, we pay approximately $20,000 a year to support EDA. That's in charge of looking at businesses and companies coming in. These properties are going to be outside the CRA. Is EDA going to be asked to get involved into helping them move from their outside the CRA to the city RA? Then they'll get the $5,000 from us. Are we going to use what we pay for?
It's my understanding, correct me, Joel, if I'm wrong, that the EDA is only looking at new businesses coming into Lynn Haven. They're not looking at existing businesses unless there's some sort of expansion like when we dealt with Train. But basically, they're looking at new businesses that are coming inside the city limits.
Interesting, because if they close down, then they're dead, and then they're going to be a new business. I just thought that EDA, the amount of money that we put into this, we've been putting into it for many years, could help out in this case, seeing that the CRA director in name only is part of representation to the EDA. Just a point.
I think it's an interesting point as well. Is there other question or discussion regarding this?
I know we had several questions regarding this, such as start dates and other questions. Are you ready to roll out with this, or do you need some time to iron those questions out and bring it back? Ben?
I'm ready to incorporate these comments from yesterday's workshop into the submitted or into the attached application form, and basically prepare a package for a final motion that would include a resolution, sorry. That would include a resolution to formally approve this application package, I would say at the next CRA meeting. So there would be one application package for businesses that would move into the CRA, and the CRA could pay for it. And parallel to that, I think we should come back at a city commission meeting with the same package just for businesses that will relocate within the city, because then other funds will be used to offer this incentive.
And I have a question also, Ben. We were talking about that, and I feel like that time is not on the side of the businesses. I think that that they're needing to do this very quickly. And I'm just putting this question out to the rest of the board. Would it be a possibility, and as well to the attorney, that a motion be made today to authorize the first package to go ahead and start distributing that, or do we need to wait until you have the package complete? That would be my question for the board, and let you discuss that, because I can't make a motion. So.
I guess the way I would understand it is we're approving, as a CRA board, we're approving the CRA incentive program for commercial property, and we just, right? I mean, and we're done. He moves forward with whatever he has, and then we come back with the city CRA.
The city attorney may have input on whether this has to be an ordinance or resolution to enact it.
Sure, yeah. I spoke with Mr. Yankee yesterday about the process of implementing this. And, for the residential program, we just did it by, we had a policy document and then a motion at a meeting. So I'm comfortable with that for the CRA section.
Right.
The memo that was presented to the board had both city and CRA sections of it. So if we split out the city section of it, what we'll do is we can y'all could do it by motion today with just the CRA based on what Ben has presented, and then I can bring back a resolution and an ordinance for the city program. The resolution would come from the CRA with a recommendation to ratify it at the city, and then the ordinance would be approving the city program whenever that, going through the ordinance program. And the reason why is because the CRA doesn't have the ability or the authority to actually enact an ordinance, because it's more of a just legal entity as far as it doesn't have the actual ability to make laws. So I think a motion would be fine, and we'll just confirm that with a resolution, so there's no question about what the program is, and what the scope of the program is. The city has the authority to enact laws, and could enact a law to spend the general fund revenue for businesses outside the city by ordinance.
Through an ordinance,
I hope I didn't confuse everybody, but that's...
Nope, that's the way I
guess the bottom line, if you all want to present a motion today to pass the commercial program for the CRA so you can get it on the street, that would be fine.
Yep.
Gentlemen, is there a motion? Could someone word that for us, or does someone feel so?
I'll make a motion that we pass the CRA commercial incentive program.
I'll second.
And there's been a second. Is there any further discussion from the board?
Ben, do you have, I guess, a list that you can get this word out fairly quickly to the businesses that are going to be impacted?
Yes.
Okay.
And you're going to go door to door. He's already gone.
Okay.
Once it has been approved, I will send out a letter to all of these business owners with an application form attached to it,
Okay.
and I will follow up with a phone call.
Thanks.
And I'm sorry, Mayor. And also, you're going to let them know that the City Commission is working on an ordinance if you decide to go outside of the city. I mean, that's
Yes.
something that you can mention. And I'd also be available if you ever want to go and visit. I wouldn't mind doing that, so, just so you know.
Is there further discussion or questions from the board? From the public? Okay, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. And I would like to congratulate the board for moving so quickly on that. I think that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And thank you, Ben, for all your work making it move forward. Item number 8 is discussion and possible action regarding the creation of a new CRA advisory board. Is there any question or discussion from the board?
At the workshop yesterday, we suggested several changes to be made in this. So do we have the changes?
No, I guess unless the city attorney has a more expeditious way, which I would certainly welcome, the idea was to entertain a motion that would adopt the 4 main points Mr. Janke presented yesterday, as well as the feedback from yesterday. He'd bring it to the next meeting, unless...
Yes. Well, Mayor, my concern or question that I had was having them in the applicants being in the CRA. I'll rely on Mayor's knowledge of there would be, based on her experience and being close to this situation. So I think maybe to start, we can start with that. We can always amend it later if we're not getting enough applicants, perhaps.
And
So I'm okay with that.
I certainly don't mean to sound like I know everyone's mind or anything, but just from feedback I've received recently and in the past months from those who live in the CRA and who have businesses in the CRA, I think we would easily get the 5 to 7 applicants for this.
Well, and again, if we don't get the applicants, we can always amend it and open it up citywide.
And
like
if I
the other
recall,
boards.
when Commissioner Shad was talking about the changes, I know he had some wording changes yesterday that I made a note about, that no less than 5 and no more than 7, I believe,
Right.
was the
And
wording.
also meeting quarterly.
And meeting quarterly rather than biannually. So,
Now, can we make a motion to tentatively approve this upon the city attorney bringing back to us
Yes, sir.
the revisions?
The CRA has the ability to create committees, so you could create that committee by motion with the criteria listed with the changes that you made. My recommendation would be to have a resolution so it's in policy and written down, and I can bring that back for the next meeting for ratification, but you could create it today. And
Okay,
the bank could start advertising and going out and getting people.
Well, I'll make that motion.
That we create the advisory board.
Yeah, but it was
Subject to-
fitted with what the attorney
with the
draft
changes noted.
for the rewording.
Exactly.
Correct.
Create the CRA advisory board with the recommendations provided by the city manager, with the changes being no less than 5 and no more than 7, and that they meet at least quarterly.
I'll second that motion.
And adding some criteria for the selection. And I mean, it's not going to be extremely descriptive, but certainly we could, I think that was discussed yesterday, too.
Yeah.
Right, but just for clarification, I mean, this board would be the selection committee.
Correct.
Right.
Is there extra qualifications that we want to put in writing to that, or just, no?
Yeah.
We can describe on that.
Okay.
I mean, if that's okay.
are there any further questions from the board, from the public?
Can I ask one more?
Sure.
Best case scenario, we do that. Is it possible, if it's a month from now, that Mr. Janke brings back the resolution and potential list for the board as well?
Yeah, the committee would be
If he gets
created.
enough? Okay.
By this motion, the committee would actually be created, and you could, I guess, advertise for opening positions. The next CRA meeting, if that's next month or in 2 weeks from now, we'll have a resolution that'll actually set out the written policy regarding the committee itself.
Bring names.
We can bring names too.
And if
Exactly.
we had names to approve, okay.
I would like to recommend that we wait until the last meeting in February for the applications to give at least, that would give about 3.5 weeks for people to apply, because
Right.
if you had it in 2 weeks, that would be pretty quick to get the word out and give people a chance to apply. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, I think you mentioned 30 days, didn't you? Yeah. So
Thank you.
A month?
Okay, at this time, would you please call the roll, Mr. Schubert?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so that has passed. And the final agenda item is public commentary. Does anyone have comments or questions about any item for the good of the cause? Yes, Mr. Walker.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. At the beginning of the meeting, I asked to reiterate the fact that the minutes had a certain clause in it. I have not heard any comment or any information on that. However, this is based on a conclusion and evaluation of information that's been researched dealing with the banding or branding of Lynn Haven. The mayor, ex-mayor, former mayor, once said that the location of the Welcome to Lynn Haven signs are in the wrong place, and that is quite typified. We know that the city of Lynn Haven moves, fluctuates a little bit, but this next branding, branding, whatever you want to call it, was we put the south gate entrance down here. It was mentioned by Main Street, and they came up with a plan, and they did denote it as being the entrance to the historical Lynn Haven. Since that, the plans have never shown what that sign is going to say. They did choose the first location, and that location was refuted by the owners of the property, and they paid for the movement of the pedestal to the next location. That location is across the street, 17th Street, and is going to require electricity to be run from one side of 17th under the ground at quite a cost. The original cost of the sign is somewhere in the area of $9,000 to $10,000. It's scaled down from the one that we have at Bailey Bridge. But the location chosen seems to be on property that is not in the CRA. If you look at the definition of 17th Street, it ends at the curb. That's where the line is, that CRA line was put in there. Granted, 17th Street has an extension over it on a right-of-way. That right-of-way does not belong to Lynn Haven. That belongs to the state or the county or the people on the other side. Question is the sign going to be put on city property, CRA? The location of it is going to require the removal of a sidewalk which is on the FDOT right away. The application to move the sign there and put the sign there has been supplied by a company. I have no idea. Not a resident of Lynn Haven, nothing. FDOT has it underneath their perusal to take a look and give approval. Location is right above AT&T's cave, which they have, which is under the ground. Again, it's going to require removal of the sidewalk and the sign put down and the sidewalk put around it, which means the sidewalk is going to be on outside the CRA, definitely. And it appears that the sign is outside of the CRA. Not to take away from...
If you could wrap it into a... I'm not going to cut you off. I'll finish your...
To settle this issue, the city attorney, and that means the people that are downtown, come out and tell us definitively that it is either FDOT's property or city's property. If it's city's property, then the CRA can claim it and use it. If it's FDOT property, it doesn't belong to the city. That is my question.
Okay. And your question is directed to?
Past mayor of this town said we can only address our questions to the mayor.
Okay, then you'll have to give me a little time to research the history. I've heard it. I can, but
We've got plenty of time.
I don't have an answer to your question.
I'm just going to go down there.
Mayor, if you...
May I defer to the attorney? Would that be satisfactory at this moment, or would you prefer to wait?
If the attorney does not use the term opinion,
To follow up on Mr. Walker's comments, this is from several months ago, and right after that meeting, I got up with Mr. Yankee, and we looked at the issue that I think was raised. At that point, I believe the issue was whether the sign was within the CRA boundary, not whether it was on city property. We did look at that, and I felt pretty confident that it was within the CRA boundaries. It's been a while, so I haven't looked at it. I don't remember exactly if it was in the right-of-way or how the CRA was described, but I'd be happy to go back and look at that issue again and put it in a written memorandum to the commission, and so you all feel comfortable with that decision.
So could we delay the answer to this question to the next CRA board meeting?
I'd just like to make one more point. If it's not FDOT's property, why are we asking them for permission to put it there? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other further, is there any further comment from the public on any topic? Yes, Mr. Yankee.
I just wanted to add one item to the comment from Mr. Walker regarding the EDA and the affected businesses on Highway 390. If I'm not mistaken, the EDA focuses on businesses that have 10 employees or more. Most of the businesses along Highway 390 would not fall into this threshold, so the EDA wouldn't focus on these businesses. The city manager tasked me a couple months ago to focus on economic development here for the city, to come up with ideas how to improve our business environment. And I think there are three core areas when it comes to economic development. The attracting new businesses to Lynn Haven, retaining existing businesses, and helping existing businesses to grow or expand. So this commercial incentive that we talked about earlier would clearly fall under the second category to retain the existing businesses here in this area. Thank you.
Those who have 10 or more employees is what you think, though, is?
Yes.
And so that's interesting to note. Thank you. Are there other comments from the public? Thank you. At this time, the CRA board meeting is adjourned, and we will regather at 6 p.m. for the City Commission meeting. Thank you. There we go.
Hey, which we ought to have 1 month where we have celebration for beer, 1 month for celebration for bourbon, one for gin.
Kids fishing tournament. We could do a gumbo cook-off or something, but I would love to see a fishing tournament. If you're under 12 years old. Yeah, that'd be a family crazy thing.
What we need to do is to get some of the businesses to sponsor some of these things, instead of us paying for them.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the January 26th City Commission meeting for the City of Lynn Haven. If this is your first visit to a commission meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome you and tell you that we're glad that you're here and hoping that you're feeling comfortable and ready to participate. And if you've been here before, we welcome you back. At this time, if you would, please stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance to the flag. Dear Father, thank you for this opportunity to gather together at the smallest level of government, but yet one of the most important, because this is where our voices are heard and where we come together to make those changes and decisions that affect all of us in our daily lives. As we work together tonight, Lord, please let us have ears of understanding and voices of temperance, and let us work together for the good for all of us here in our wonderful city of Lynn Haven. Bless all who are here, bless their families, and bless them as they go about their work for the rest of the week. I ask all these things in Christ's name. Amen. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to start this evening's mayor's report with a proclamation for Crossing Guard Appreciation Day. And here in Lynn Haven, we're still small enough that we have our crossing guards who help our school children, and we see them every morning, and we see several who are here in the meeting. And as I'm reading this proclamation, if you are a Lynn Haven crossing guard or a member of their family, and you don't mind, would you please come and stand down front for a photograph and let us honor you for what you do for our children every day here in the city of Lynn Haven. Whereas every school day, thousands of dedicated crossing guards assist our children across busy streets as they drive and depart from school, and state and local governments place top priority on child safety and recognize that education plays a critical role in ensuring the safety of our children and the crossing guards who assist them. And whereas crossing guards provide an invaluable service to our communities and deserve special recognition for their tireless efforts. And whereas on December 28, 2015, Governor Rick Scott declared February 5, 2016 as Crossing Guard Appreciation Day in the state of Florida. Now, therefore, I, Margot Deal Anderson, also wish to declare February the 5th, 2016 as Crossing Guard Appreciation Day and extend greetings and best wishes to the dedicated employees serving our children and citizens of Lynn Haven, Florida. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Lynn Haven to be affixed on January 26, 2016, Margot Deal Anderson, and I would like to express my personal congratulations and appreciations to each of you, and I'm sure the audience would as well, if you would please give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Deb. Here's Harding. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to these ladies, too. Not only they keep our kids protected and safe, they always have a smile on their face and they wave at everyone that goes by. We really appreciate your service.
Item number 3, as I continue with the mayor's report, I did want to express to you that on February the 8th, which will be our next commission meeting, I will not be here for that meeting. I'm going to be out of town, and I'm not going to tell you that it's on business. It's a 4-day vacation that I'm going to take with my husband, so I will not be here. And then I also had one other item. I've been working with Matt Surensey, who is the president of the Florida League of Cities, and another representative to work with them on something called the Florida League of Cities Compact. And I've started the process of contacting other mayors in the Northwest Florida region, and we're trying to, League of Cities is going to assist me, and we're going to try and put together a mayor's summit so that we can all address our issue of flooding in Northwest Florida, which is a huge issue that affects all of our lives, and we're going to try and form a compact of mayors from this region and take it to the National League of Cities in March as a resolution that we're going to work together to try and bring federal dollars together by bonding together as cities. So I'm very excited about this project, and I'll be keeping everyone informed as we move along, and I think it's going to maybe bring about some change for us in our area. So that's all I have for my report, and I'll pass over to Commissioner Shad.
I would like to compliment our road department. We have had quite a bit of rain recently. Sometimes those showers, the good deluge, has been very, very heavy. And yet, I was able to drive around, and a lot of the areas that typically have flooded in the past did not. And we had exceptionally good drainage and good street coverage. So I'd like to thank them.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
I'd like to thank any of those that are present. And this was quite a show. I talked to Leon just a few minutes ago, but probably the biggest turnout I've seen to a DOT event was held, about a week or so ago over at the Lynn Haven Methodist, and I was very appreciative to see that many people turn out. It's a high priority for Lynn Haven. It's a high priority for Bay County to get something done on what I call the east corridor of 77. That's going to be dramatically impacted when they bring the west side up to Ohio. So as much heat as we can possibly keep on those who are in the decision-making process, it's an uphill climb to try to get and wrestle large sums of money from South and Central Florida. But we do have a good contact in Tallahassee. And so I would just encourage you at any opportunity you have to speak to a politician, especially our state legislators, senators, or whatever, is try to impress upon them how important the eastern corridor of 77 is to the city of Lynn Haven. But thank you for those that came out to the meeting last week.
Thank you. Commissioner Friend?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'd also attended, and I'd like to say the same thing. I mean, it was very well attended. It was good to see such a good group. But I'd also like to add that I think our entire team was there. So I'd like everyone to know that we're all very engaged with that project. We're all working. I'd like to think we're all working pretty hard on behalf of the residents of Lynn Haven to see that get done as soon as possible and with the least amount of impact as possible. So that, and I think I mentioned before at the last meeting, but I will be traveling Thursday to the MPOAC over in Tallahassee for that meeting. So if anybody has any questions or comments you'd like for me to bring you up to speed on what we're going to do over there, I'll be glad to share some of that with you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Barnes?
Yes, I had the opportunity to attend the EDA investors meeting, and there are a lot of projects that are on the horizon. Becca Harden, who is the executive director there, is working very hard in trying to get businesses to come to this area, and there are some potential businesses that are coming that are looking at the Lynn Haven area. But she is working hard. The EDA investors are working hard. So you're probably going to see some good things coming here in the future.
Thank you. Item number 5 will be the city manager's report. Mr. Schubert?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple items, announcements. One, the 27th of this month is opening day for spring baseball. Most of you know that's a big event. It goes from the morning to late in the evening. There's a lot of activities. There's a yard sale, so I just wanted to mention that. That's out at the sports park on the 27th. Also, in November, we approved a development agreement for what's affectionately known as the Field Depot property between the developer and the city. And contemplated in that agreement or stated in that agreement as far as the McMullen Library, the building that sits just to the north of us over here, was for the two parties, being the developer of Blue Water and the Heritage Society, to agree upon a mutually agreeable site for the building that would benefit all. I just wanted to mention that rather than being located on the island, they've agreed now to locate the library on the Garden Club lot next to the Union Soldier. Most of you are familiar with that, over there by the Lynn Haven Elementary School. So we'll be pursuing that. In the end, it accomplishes what the city was trying to negotiate with the Heritage Society for months, if not a year or two. And in the end, it's actually cheaper for us because we don't have to move it so far. So I'm happy that came to a resolution, and I'm happy all the parties seem to be happy about that. So I wanted to mention that. And the only other thing I had, Mayor, was I wanted to petition the Commission to table item number 16, as we discussed in the workshop yesterday, in favor of discussing it at the end of February, the second meeting in February.
Okay. At this time, could I have a motion that we table item number 16 until the February 26th meeting?
Moved.
Second.
And is there any discussion from the board? Just by way of explanation to the public, if you were not at the workshop yesterday, we have a list of activities. We're just trying to add to the activities and festivals, block parties, et cetera, that will be part of Lynn Haven's slate of activities. And the Commission requested more time to look at the activities and to have some more input before we brought it to the Commission. So and if you have questions, please feel free to call on any of us or suggestions. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll for that?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so it does pass. And I, in addition to Mr. Schubert's comments about the McMullen Library, I would like to take this opportunity to publicly thank Mr. Don Jackson and the Blue Water Development Company for taking the time, having the ability to see the hearts of what the people of Lynn Haven who so loved that library really wanted, and reaching out and making that work. So Mr. Jackson is over here. He's part of the Blue Water Development. I'd just like to personally thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, the city attorney's report.
No report, ma'am.
Okay. Moving on to item number 7, which is a public hearing. The time is now 6:12. I'd like to open this public hearing. Item number 7, the Small Scale Plan Amendment, SSA-16-1, Public Institutional to Low Density Residential for 708 Iowa Avenue. Will you be reading that, or Mr. Schubert, Ms. Richard? Or is there, is there a staff report before we read the...
I don't think it matters, does it, Rob? Do I need to read the ordinance?
No, you don't have to necessarily read it during the public hearing. You can read
Okay.
it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure we had it in order, Amanda. I didn't mean to...
Okay.
Are we good?
Yes. Is this do you have to ask quasi-judicial?
No.
Okay. Nope. I apologize.
So we're not reading anything?
You can read it here, or you can read it at the item, when the item comes up for final
Okay.
approval.
Why don't we go ahead and read it,
Okay.
so that we'll be ready when the item comes up. Thank you. I apologize.
Ordinance number 1012, an ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from public institutional to low-density residential for an approximate 1.606 acres of property located at 708 Iowa Avenue in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. And the time is now 6:13, and the public hearing is closed. I thought we were going to do that when we got to the item.
Take public comment during the...
Thank you. So the public hearing is open again. It is 6:13. Is there any public comment on this item? Yes. Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Jackson, for keeping me straight.
My name is Nancy Brzezowski. I live at 700 Iowa, directly across from the Lions Club. I was here at the meeting last night and heard it stated that the proposed hope for that property was low density, 4 individual lots for 4 individual homes. But when I looked through on the website, it said that for this particular piece of property, which is called Block 75, according to the map, this map that's on the website, and this one also, it labeled that as Block 75. And it says here that lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of Block 75, according to the plat of Lynn Haven, on file in the office of the clerk of the Circuit Court of Bay County, Florida. So I was just curious why, the plan, the hope is for 4 third-acre lots as opposed to 7, which would make them much smaller.
Can you, Ms. Richard, can you speak to the limit, the upward limit of how many lots are possible on this size property?
Thank you. And you can return to the podium if the question is not answered fully, okay?
Yes. Although there are 7 lots on the historic plat, there are regulations in the city's code which state that low-density residential properties which are in the historic plat area, the 1911 historic plat area, have to be at least 75 feet wide and 7,500 square feet. So although there are 50-foot lots on that parcel currently under the historic plat area, they couldn't actually be developed as 50-foot lots.
Okay, thank you. Does that answer your question, ma'am? Okay, perfect. Are there any other comments or questions about this?
Mayor, if I could just add,
Sure.
Because there was a little confusion on that, just so maybe everyone knows, make sure I understand it as well. If we move forward, we're going to sell the property as is, regardless of what is currently platted or not. And then the developer is going to, they're going to make the decision on what they would like to do with that. If it's a developer, an individual, they're going to make the decision on what they're going to do with that property. And then, of course, they'd come back through to the commission for approval on any kind of plat or anything. So as long as I understand it correctly, city manager and city attorney. That's the way I understand it.
That is correct, and we had it appraised, and part of an appraisal is they do a highest and best use analysis, and that's where the 4 lots came from. They looked at it, looked at what's legally permissible, what would give the highest rate of return, and that's how they came up with 4 lots. As Commissioner Friend said, a developer could come in and say, no, I think it's more viable to do 3 lots, but they can't do the 7, like you were talking about, because of the limitations of the plat.
Any other comments or questions?
Or an individual with great means might buy it and put up in one big house.
That's right.
That's right.
But today, we're just asking for the land use change from public institutional to low-density residential. It would have to come in front of the board to either sell it and or to approve a development order, or what type of improvements will be placed on it.
Does anyone else from the public have a question on this item? Okay, it is now 6:17 and the public hearing is closed. Moving on to items 8 and 9, which are the consent agenda. Item number 8 is the minutes for the January 12th regular meeting of the City Commission. And item number 9 is the approval of the lease renewal of the Bay County Tax Collector Office on 801 Florida Avenue. Do I have a motion for acceptance of items 8 and 9?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or discussions from the board on either of these items? Does the public have a question on either item 8 or item 9 at this time? And there appears to be none. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll for acceptance of items 8 and 9?
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so those are approved. Moving on to item number 10, which is old business. This is the second and final reading of Ordinance 1012, which is a small-scale plan amendment SSA-16-1, public institutional to low-density residential. This same property we were just discussing in the public hearing, 708 Iowa Avenue. Is there, and we've read the ordinance previously, so we're good. Is there a motion for acceptance of item number 10?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion from the board? Any discussion from the public? Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, so that is approved. Moving on to new business. Item number 11, Resolution 2016-01-638, amending an established T&D Administrative Exception Overlay District for Shoreline Village, Phase 1C. Is there a staff report? Thank you, Ms. Richard.
I don't have a visual presentation for this because there really isn't anything to look at. This is a request by D&H Properties for an administrative exception overlay district for a portion of the villages of Mill Bayou Shoreline Village Phase 1. The whole of Phase 1 was given a development order in 2013, and the applicant is going to be requesting on the next agenda item to make some amendments to that original development order. In order to be able to make one of the amendments, they need to have a special administrative exception approved, which would allow them to not have the requirement for rear alleys where lots are less than 60 feet wide. Currently in the TND, Traditional Neighbourhood Development section of the code, and this is a traditional neighbourhood development, there is a requirement that where lots are less than 60 feet wide, they have to provide rear alleys.
Thank you. Mr. Schubert, would you please read the resolution for us? 638, I'm sorry. I think it's tabbed, right? Am I seeing
Thank
it?
you.
I can see it over there.
Thank you. Resolution number 2016-01-638, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending an established traditional neighborhood development, TND, administrative exception overlay district for Shoreline Village Phase 1, making findings under Section 04.05.15 of the Unified Land Development Code, or ULDC, modifying the rear alley requirement for Phase 1C of the existing overlay district, and providing an immediately effective date.
Thank you. Are there questions or concerns from the board regarding this item? Are there questions or concerns from the public? Yes, sir.
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. There was a lot of discussion on this yesterday at the workshop, and I won't go into that because that's going to open up another bucket of worms. One question. We're going to move or make the lots smaller so that they don't have to build an alley. We made the lots larger so they could put the swimming pools. Does this impact on that swimming pool change that we did about a couple of months ago?
I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah, we adjusted the setback requirement for the pools, and I will say, and I don't want to reiterate the discussion from yesterday word for word either, but I will say, and the developer representative and also the engineer are here as well that can speak to any other specific questions. But the TND, the Traditional Neighborhood Development, this is the only one in the city, they wrote it. The developer wrote this, and rather than, and I think they would readily admit, the developer would, they wrote it too restrictive. Because what they want to do, and this is a multi-year process, obviously, because the absorption, is over at least a decade long. There are restrictions in this TND that they wrote that were self-imposed that are much more constricting or restrictive than what you'd find anywhere else in the city. So what we've talked about, rather than bring an administrative exception every 6 months to a year to the commission, we're going to sit down with them after this and develop a whole list. And they're going to, with our assistance and the commission's approval, rewrite the TND so they don't have to keep coming back. Now, I think the pool setback is going to be exactly the same regardless of the size of the lot, to answer your question specifically. But we don't enjoy having to bring these. I'm sure they don't enjoy paying the fee every 6 to 12 months. So I would anticipate in the next 7 to 8 months max, if not the next 2 to 3 months, us coming back and with a whole, I don't know, 6 to 10 max, where we don't do this every time. But my point is, these restrictions are a lot more comprehensive or restrictive, for lack of a better word, than anywhere else in the city, and they were self-imposed, and frankly, self-inflicted might be a better word. So they're having to adjust to these restrictions as the market dictates and as the market demands change.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into that. That's why I said
Well,
that.
I think it's you know, most of these folks weren't here, so.
To do that, thank you for the answer to the question, but you opened that bucket of worms. The bucket of worms is this. That was a comprehensive plan that was done before only 1, 2, 3, 4 people, I don't remember if the attorney was there, was present in this building when that bill of goods was sold to us and approved in a comprehensive plan to the state of Florida at very good expense to this city. And a lot of time went into that comprehensive plan. And what you're saying is that TND, comprehensive plan, in some people's eyes, was dumb.
I didn't use that word.
I didn't know. I know you didn't say that, but you're insinuating. They are insinuating that it was ill-founded or ill-conceived, and a lot of effort went into that by the city and the citizens of this town. We spent a lot of time on that, and it might have not fit what the new owners of that property wanted, but that's a different bucket of worms. So you're going to have to address that in a comprehensive plan change. And I just want to make it sure, you answered my question, but you opened that bucket of worms, that you understand that a lot of time and a lot of effort went into the comprehensive plan change, over a year of people coming from Tallahassee, sitting down and doing that. That was quite a deal. And I'm sorry that it's not considered in the realm of the business world as acceptable. But it sure was acceptable then, and the governor and a lot of people signed off on it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Walker.
for the answer to the question.
Thank you.
Can I just say one?
Sure, and
thing?
and before you do, if you don't mind, I am never, ever going to cut anyone off who has something to say in the room, but please keep in mind that in the past, it was said, and there's a timer that I'm staring at as you're talking, that we're asking to try and keep your comments to 3 minutes. If you cannot do that, just try to keep it as concise as possible. I'm not going to, cut anyone off. We're here to speak and we're here to say our minds, but be mindful of how many people we have, and that's not a lecture, Mr. Walker, just a reminder. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Schubert, you want to?
Yeah, the only comment I'd have back is we just went through pretty much the same process with the Field Depot, and we spent the better part of 8 months to a year, and it felt like 2 years. So, I'm fully aware of what goes into that, but what we built into this, and I think the developer would readily admit, is the flexibility in being nimble enough to react to the market, whereas they can build from here to here. The lots can be from here to here. They can have an alley. They can have. The possibilities are there. It's a flexible plan, whereas this one is not. So yes, dumb's not the word I'd use for it, but it needed to be more flexible and nimble, and we'll address that in the coming months.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment on this item? I do apologize. I've forgotten if we had a motion in a second.
No, there has been a motion.
We have not. May I have a motion for acceptance of item number 12?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll? Yes.
This is number 11 we're voting on.
I'm sorry, I had already crossed through it. Thank you. It is item number 11. Thank you.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. Thank you, and that resolution has passed. Moving to item number 12, thank you for keeping me straight on numbers. When we start discussing, I cross them off. Discussion and possible action regarding approval of an amendment to the development order for Shoreline Village Phase 1C, DO-13-6. Is there a report from planning? Thank you.
This is the amendment to the development order that I mentioned that goes along with the item that you all just voted on. So the development order for the entirety of Phase 1 was approved by the Commission in 2013. They are building, they are currently constructing Phase 1A. They've had their preliminary plat approved by the Commission a couple of weeks ago for Phase 1B. Before they submit their plat for Phase 1C, they wanted to ask to amend some of the items on the original site plans that went along with that development order in 2013. So the applicant is D&H Properties, LLC. The agent is Jonathan Skolarski with Preble Riche, and he is here tonight. The location is East Highway 390, and the size of this phase is approximately 13.82 acres, and the land use is traditional neighborhood development. So what the applicant is requesting are three changes. First of all, the requirement for on-street parking. They're asking that can be waived for this Phase 1C. The second item is that the lot sizes can be reduced from what were on the original plans. The lot size being reduced isn't a problem at all, because in a T&D you can have a variety of lot sizes. There's no minimum lot size. And the third item was to be allowed to change from the asphalt base on the roads to a base that consists of 8 inches of lime rock and 2 inches of asphalt. And this would apply to the 51 single-family lots and the recreation area. This map shows you where the property is. I can't use a laser with these screens, so I can't kind of point it out, but I think you're all familiar with the property, the 900 acres up there on 390. This is what is currently, this is Phase 1A. Phase 1B is coming below this, and Phase 1C will be where all that dirt is up towards the top there. And these are the site plans which were included in your packets. And the white area at the top, those lots at the top in the white are the Phase 1C. The blue shaded areas are the other phases. I'd like to say that we have had a number of staff meetings on this, and there was some initial questions regarding the roads, what they're proposing on the roads. And the city engineer and also the public works director requested some borings to be done and some additional data, which were done, and I was told that they are satisfied with what was presented. But Bobby Baker is here. If you have any questions regarding that, he can answer those for you. I don't really know much about the engineering side of it.
And ma'am, if I can do one thing, this is a development order amendment application, so we should do a quasi-judicial hearing with the Jennings disclosure, so I'd just like to go ahead and do that, if that's okay. Whoever plans on providing any testimony on this item number 13, please go ahead and, 12, stand and raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're going to provide is the truth upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
And the testimony you did provide. And then if any member of the commission has had any ex parte communications about this item, please go ahead and disclose those on the record now.
I have had none.
I've had none.
I've had none.
I've had none. And I've had none.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. Are there questions or discussion? Well, first of all, could we have a motion for this item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion or questions from the board?
Yes, I have questions. I have a problem with accepting the substitution of the asphalt with the lime rock. All right. Lime rock is not going to hold up like asphalt. That land is relatively low, and I know the DOT has approved it, saying that you can do that. But unless there are some sort of restrictions we put on there, once we accept that, it becomes our responsibility to do the upkeep and repair on it. Right? Now, limestone is not going to last like your asphalt preparation. Limestone is limestone. It's going to wear away with water. Right? I just don't like to see the city assume an obligation that can cost us more money. The developer is going to save a lot of money by going that route. If we're going to go that route, I would like to see at least something in the agreement for an extended period of time saying they will be responsible for the repair and upkeep of that road. Now, I know people may disagree with me, but I look at it long-term as being a cost to the city that we can avoid by either making them stick to the original proposal, or if they do it, accept an agreement that they will maintain it for a longer period of time than we normally do.
I would like to concur with Commissioner Shad. All items in item number 12 I'm in agreement with, except for the paving. And my number one, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I did attend the planning board's meeting several weeks ago, and they voted 3-2, I believe, that they didn't think that was the best road to go. Is that not
They
correct?
voted, it was 3-3, which meant that their motion to approve failed.
Okay.
So it did,
So
the
it was,
motion didn't
sort
pass.
of, I was trying to remember why it didn't go through, but, and so after, thank you. And so after that meeting, I don't profess to be, you know, an expert in paving, but after that meeting, I do consider myself an expert in research and reading, and so I did do a lot of reading, and I do concur that FDOT does approve this, but my understanding is after 10 years, Lynn Haven would be responsible for the upkeep of that road. And while it does follow the standards of having the 2-foot base differential, I believe is the word, from the water, if water were to occur from the top of the road, if it were to crack, if there were damage and could seep down that way, as we'll discuss even later when we're talking about the fracking resolution, water degrades lime rock. And so, you know, with limited understanding, I have hesitation, so I wanted to, you know, with what I've read and what I've seen, and we do have a planning board to advise us for a reason. We have a group of gentlemen that we, the citizens, you know, have to look into these things, and they can look from an expert's point of view. So I'm going to probably, on that one item, I have great reservation because of what our planning board said. Thank you.
Mayor, don't fall out your seat, but I agree with you. Okay, so sit still. But I've seen the city take responsibility of some developments that were not up to par when it comes to roads, and we don't. I think we need to stick with the asphalt. I agree with you, Commissioner Shad, as well. But like I said, just don't fall out your seat. Okay.
Mayor,
I'm certainly encouraged.
It's on the record, you know that, right? It's being recorded.
Thank you, Commissioner
Mayor,
Barnes. No.
Mayor, if I could just make a couple of comments. I did some research on it as well, made a few phone calls. I had the same exact concerns, and I wanted to use this opportunity to thank our planning board and all the work that they do for the city. And I rely heavily on their opinions and everything. So could we ask maybe the engineers and/or Mr. Bobby Baker to come up and share their side, I guess, because
absolutely
I came to a different conclusion. I do look long term, and I think so. But from what I understand, we've done it before. The actual entrance into that development already was approved, and then we have these type of lime rock foundations, if you will, throughout Bay County. So I'd just like to ask if we could just hear the other side real quick.
Absolutely.
May I make a comment while they're coming up, too? And I think that's a valid point, is while I don't think it sets precedent if if it's a quote-unquote mistake, if you do it somewhere, especially in the same development, doesn't mean you have to continue doing it, but I think it's a valid point. We've already approved it in the development. The only thing I would say, regardless of how this vote turns out, I think it should be an agenda item in the next commission meeting, because builders are coming here to build. They see it as an approved FDOT standard. They see it happening all over Bay County and all over the same area. We ask them for core samples. Our staff recommends approval. If we're not going to be approving these roads, I need to adjust our ULDC to reflect that, so developers don't come in with the expectation of using the same standards they're using in other places, even in Lynn Haven, but in other areas in the county, so.
May I ask when the other approval was given? Like, has that been a time
Was that
past, or?
2013, Ms. Richard, with the original?
Might have been before that.
Not recently, in other words? Okay. Okay, because I
2 or
wasn't
3
aware of
years
it, so,
ago.
okay, thank you. Mr. Baker, did you want to come up and? Thank you.
Phase 1 was done with the asphalt base. So it was done, the boulevard was done with the lime rock base. It's kind of a different animal, you know, it's just a wide straight boulevard versus a lot of turning and twisting and stuff like that. The DOT will accept the lime rock base. Now, is it better? To me, it's not. I prefer the asphalt base myself, but it does meet a DOT standard, this new design that they have. And it's always got to do with water. I think 2 of the items that you're approving are modifications to the T&D. This other one you're talking about is a modification to our design standards, not theirs. So there's quite a bit of difference. So we would be approving changing our design standards.
Or not agreeing to our design standards, which yields to the city manager's point that if this is a precedence that we might set today with this particular item, number 3 of their request, then we need to take a step back. And I think it could be, it might be detrimental to future development in Lynn Haven with developers, because it's obviously a cost saving, and they're, you know, that's why they're developing it. They're not doing it for us, you know,
Right.
so much.
It is a cost saving to the developer, but the asphalt base is a better product in the end.
But my concern is, over a period of
I
time,
agree.
we're the ones that's going to have to hear it from the citizens, and we're the ones that's going to have to pony up the money to pay for it. And that's what I've seen in all the, well, not all the developments, but the past developments that we've accepted. It has turned out that the city has had to go in there and fix it, or it's either become too costly to fix it at this point. So,
but I guess my question on that would be, and I don't disagree with you, and that was my concern is, you know, when the city takes it over, but do we not already have pavement? Do we not already have other developments where we've assumed the maintenance of the roads that they were done with pavements, and we're still having to repair those?
Once we accept the plat, they give us a 1-year warranty on it. Then we accept it after the first year.
Yeah.
Then we assume all responsibility.
But what I'm saying is, don't we have other developments that may have the pavement for the foundation instead of the lime rock, and we're still having to take care of those roads as well? I mean, I'm sure we have some of those. I think.
well, that was before we put in the ordinance into place. Way back when I came on the commission, we had to accept some of these roads.
Oh, okay.
That were just horrible.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So.
Yeah, there was.
Point.
Until the subdivision regulations were established, it was just a free-for-all to do it.
And I think ours kind of helped set that.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
When we passed those subdivision regulations, things became a little bit better.
Okay.
But prior to that time.
Right. So now the new subdivision regulations require curb and gutter and a specific road design and all.
So, okay. So maybe the engineer, would you like to, if the mayor would allow?
Of course, please. Thank you.
Great, thank you, John Skolarski, Preble Rish. So back to the planning board vote, it was a 3-3 vote. I believe at the time we did not acquire the geotechnical data that was requested by Mr. Baker. At the time there was some confusion, some discussion. Since then we have provided that data and provided our separation from base to the water table. DOT has many acceptable materials. Asphalt base is one of them. Lime rock base is one of them. Crushed concrete is one of them. You know, they're all used in specific applications and specific locations. You know, the asphalt base is definitely good for low-lying, wet conditions, hence the requirement for the base separation of 2 feet from the seasonal high water table. Lime rock base is a great base. Crushed concrete is a great base. Asphalt's a great base. It's all about the application, the construction techniques, and making sure that you have a good product at the end. And if you run through, DOT gauges these by structural numbers, and if you run through the actual structural number and run the calculations between the asphalt section that is currently approved with the DO and the asphalt section that we're proposing, we're actually proposing a higher structural number than what is currently approved. So if with the appropriate construction techniques, the compaction of the base and the 2 inches of asphalt, there's a concern with the cracking, then all roads need maintenance, all road needs repair, all roads need resurfacing at some point in time. They have about 10 to 20-year life. Cracks occur, you seal them, you patch them. There was discussion, I know, at the planning board, which you attended, Mayor, and about water mains potentially breaking on the side of the road, an act of, God, and what happens there. Those things it's all maintenance, it's all repair. Most of the surrounding communities require, or at least allow, lime rock or crushed aggregate base. We just went through a similar scenario approximately a year and a half ago with the city of Panama City. They were, like yourselves, like the city of Lynn Haven, had in their code that all we want is asphalt base. That's all we want. We were working with Sweet Bay, the old airport development, and we went through a long process, reports and data acquisition and presentations, and we were able to have them allow us in this condition because it was such a higher elevated property and there was sufficient separation from the seasonal high water table. They allowed us to use lime rock and crushed aggregate base. We were actually recycling the runway and using that as base. It was pretty cool. So for this project here, we have the right conditions. The geotechnical report states that, is it going to set a precedence, for future development? It might need to be addressed in the code moving forward. We had the entrance road was approved with lime rock, and in 2013, 2 or 3 years ago, it had the right conditions. And if we travel out to that roadway now and inspect the roadway, it's in great shape. And with the traffic that's on that road to and from the school, it's still in great shape. There's no rutting. It was built exactly how it should have been to specification. The road going past the school only will have the residential traffic on it. So that road took a lot of wear and tear over the last 2 years, and it's held up great. And so if you're going to have a failure in base or a failure in asphalt, it's going to occur due to improper construction techniques, and it's going to occur fast. You're going to know it over the first 2 years of construction. You're going to know it. So we're just requesting, that you guys approve the use of alternate bases. We believe that with appropriate construction techniques, it's a stronger road bed. And just keep in mind, all roads, even asphalt-based roads, need maintenance sometimes. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
John, I've got a question. Isn't lime rock base what was used or being used on the 5-laning of Baldwin from Minnesota to Harrison on that project?
Yes, it was, because we worked on the first 2 phases of Baldwin Road widening.
So as we speak, they're doing a 5-lane extension from Harrison Avenue to Minnesota with a lime rock base.
Correct, all has lime rock base. It really is, like I said, again, that's the appropriate use for lime rock base given the groundwater conditions and where you are. You probably all have driven down Baldwin Road before they fixed it, and you're doing this, all the way down. It was because when they built that road prior, they just dumped the trees and didn't remove them and let them decay, and so it's improper construction technique. We've come a long way since then with preparing the subsurface conditions of any roadbed, and we feel that it's an acceptable manner and roadbed, and it's going to stand up.
So what's the lifespan of the limestock road?
Well, Lime Rock, we designed the roads to a 20-year design life. We have 2 inches of asphalt on top of the Lime Rock, which typically you might only see in a quarter to an inch and a half in a parking lot. 2 inches is what we have on the entry road. And so it would require milling and resurfacing between about 15 and 20 years, depending on the use. But the design life is 20 years.
Mayor, if I may, and the
Sure.
design life, is that based on just lime rock? Is that one, and then pavement would be 20 years? I mean,
It's
whether identical.
Whether you have lime rock base, whether you have crushed concrete or asphalt base, it's about 20-year design life is what DOT designs to.
And then the last thing, just so I make sure I understand, we're saying like a a 2 feet between the water base and the lime rock, but you're saying you're actually going to do beyond that, correct? I mean, the distance is going to be even greater than the 2.
Correct, yeah, the minimum requires
That
2
we
feet.
require.
Yes.
The minimum, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, excuse me.
That's okay.
That is correct. We got additional, I believe, 8 borings on top of what we had previously. We analyzed those borings and established the seasonal high water table elevation. We plotted them on the roadway plan and profiles, and the separation distance between seasonal high, which isn't actual where the water is when you look at it, it's looking at the soil column, all the staining, the highest it's been, that's the seasonal high. So you could dig a hole and look down and see water, but when you look at the soil column, the seasonal high might be 1 foot to 1.5 feet above that. And so when we plotted those elevations across the roadway profile, we had separation anywhere between 5 feet, and I think the closest one we had was about 2.75 feet, maybe 2.5 feet, but it exceeded the 2 foot minimum required separation.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to point that out is that's kind of the final thing that helped me draw to my conclusion. So when I found out that information.
Any more questions? I'll be right here. Any more questions?
Madam Mayor,
Commissioner Shea.
I'd like to remind the commission and people in the audience, when I first joined the commission, and I know Mr. Barnes will remember a lot of this, we had a lot of developers wanting to build and develop in Lynn Haven. To be honest, some of them were building a pretty shoddy product. We took the stand that we wanted to have a quality product built in our city. We raised our standards. There are a lot of things we required that other cities didn't. Right? So we went above and beyond what the bare minimum was. The developers screamed loud, "Oh, you're going to put us out of business." And our response was, you build a quality product and they will come. We stuck to our guns. We increased the requirements in a lot of areas so that they put gutters in. We required them to provide us recreation space. In other words, we upped our standards. And as a result of that, over the years, we have had a lot of developers come in here and build good products, and they found out they sell them faster than the shoddy stuff they were building. Right? I don't want us to go back to building just barely adequate things that's going to cost us money in the long run. Now, DOT may approve that as a standard.
An option.
But it is a standard that is less than the asphalt, is it not?
It's just a different alternative. This typical section of asphalt that we're proposing is actually stronger than the asphalt section.
No, it's still...
In structural number.
It costs less money, and that's the big deal.
And it does cost less money.
Yeah. But in the long run, I'm concerned that after the developer is finished and gone, and the roads start deteriorating, and we've accepted them, we're the ones that are stuck with it in the city. It's going to cost our citizens money. Now, if, in your opinion, in the opinion of the DOT people, those standards are adequate, then you ought to be willing to guarantee a longer period of time that you'll maintain them and repair them.
I can't speak on behalf of the developer to warranty a roadway. But you will, I think, what is a 1-year warranty, Bobby, after acceptance? So like I said, we could all travel out to the entrance road, Millbio entrance road right now and look at the road and see the integrity of it. And I drive, my kids go there, I drive it every day. So it's a great roadway and it's held up and it's been 2 years. And once we get completed with this, you will have to plat it. You'll have a 1-year warranty period. Like I said, if anything is built inadequately or starts failing, it's not based off of the actual structural component of the roadway segment. It is based off of a construction technique in that one area.
You're not willing to give more than 1 year?
It's not my place to warranty it personally.
Is the developer here?
The developer is here.
I mean, just understand, we've been down this road before. Just like Commissioner Shad said, you know, we've had to deal with fixing something that someone else was trying to save money on. We want to make sure that we try to save money for our citizens. That's our fiduciary responsibility. And so I'm not against the development, the project at all. I just want to make sure we get good quality roads and don't have to go anywhere from 1 to 5 years down the road, and all of a sudden we're having to repair roads again. So,
David Barber, D&H Properties. The answer to your question is yes, we would entertain that. You know, we're betting on the road to be a quality road as well. It's not going to take us 10 years to finish this project. It's going to be more like 20, possibly 30 at the current rate. So we're going to be around a long time. This actual design of road is stronger than the full depth asphalt. Now, Bobby doesn't like the lime rock because he's used to the asphalt and he understands that. But if you pinned him down, he would, based upon the numbers, tell you that this is a better roadway system. And we've already got it on site. You know, we've got it on the main road. John's point is completely valid. That road gets more trips per day than any interior subdivision road probably in all of the city. I mean, if you've ever been there at 7:45.
But you will entertain a motion, you entertain the idea of guaranteeing it longer?
Sure, yeah.
So you give us 10-year guarantee that?
No.
How many years would you give us?
Well, typically, I know, because I've built a lot of roads in the state, probably almost 100 miles worth of roads. The typical is between 2 and 4 years.
Give us 5?
No. But between 2 and 4 would be reasonable. And like John says, the road will fail, this type of road will fail if it's put in improperly. And you're going to know within 6 months if it's a bad road. Because I've seen that before. The groundwater conditions are proper for this. The standards, the high standards that Lynn Haven has is going to be maintained. It's actually a better, stronger road. So.
All right. Well, now, you have asked us for the waiver of 3 things.
Yes.
All right. The hang-up is on the road. If you're willing to extend the warranty, what kind of, you're going to put it in writing for us? For how long?
If you'll propose it and give me some guidelines, can I bond it? Do I, you know, I need to know some more details, but yeah, we would do that.
Well, Mayor, might I suggest that we, and the city attorney, correct me if I'm wrong, we could move forward. I could amend my motion to include the 1 and 2, not 3. City manager could get back with a developer. They could come to a resolution on 3, and then we would move forward that as a separate item. Would that be an option?
Yes, sir.
I had one other question that I would like to ask, because my whole concern is water, and I understand about the 2-foot differential and the water, but my question is, Lynn Haven is basically just waiting for the next storm. I was here in 95 during Opal, and I mean, that's my biggest nightmare for all of our citizens, because if right now we have so many issues with our roads. We're getting ready to do a complete paving everywhere in the city, and we have so many issues with drainage and roads and paving. So my question is, if we were to get a catastrophic storm like Opal that we had in 1995, and the water comes on top of the road, which it would do, and the water table rises, which it generally does during a 15-foot storm surge, how much could one storm degrade that lime rock in that road? I mean, that could change the whole picture.
Well, a good answer would be several summers ago in July, we got a 20-inch rain event, which was considered a 200-year event. So every 200 years, it's going to rain that hard. And we had no flooding in the area along the main road or in the area that we're speaking of right now.
So the elevation is higher there than the rest of Lynn Haven, or because I had 2 feet in my yard during that event?
We did not. We didn't have any flooding on our property except on the very north end.
Okay,
And it was from me to you onto the property.
okay.
So,
That was just, that's just in the reading that I'm doing, I'm not concerned about what you're doing as far as the building quality, because I know that you're being
Yeah.
true to that. I'm just worried about the dynamics of where we live at sea level and how many, I don't think we'll get another rain event, hopefully, like that in another 100 years, but we are primed for a tropical storm or hurricane at almost any
oh,
time.
we
so-
always are, yes.
so, okay, thank you, I appreciate that answer.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
would I ask Mr. Friend to restate his motion?
Yes, Mr. Friend?
Yeah, if we're
Commissioner
ready.
Friend, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much. If we're ready, what I would do is rescind my original motion, and I would amend it to say that we move with approval of item 12, with the exception of item 3 requested from the developer.
Mr. Ashbrook would have to agree since he was...
And then they would come back to us after working with the city manager on item 3?
Excuse me,
Yes.
Commissioner Shab, but Mr. Ashbrook would have to agree with the motion since he made the
excuse
original
Is
one.
that doable?
Excuse me?
Is that doable for
Absolutely.
what your needs are to,
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
extract item 3 and have it come back from a timeline?
Yes.
Can we make it a condition?
Okay. I'll rescind the motion and second Mr.
That's a good point.
Hey,
Could we make it a condition?
Instead of having to come back for that one item, you know, if
Yeah,
you
it'll
can
come-
satisfy,
It'll come back for the
one
one
item.
item after you negotiate with city manager to try to satisfy the concerns and the warranties of the other commissioners, or the whole commission.
Are you saying to make it a condition that you'll give a 2 to 4 year, 3 year, whatever warranty
Whatever we
as?
work out together? Yes.
And present it back to us?
Would that have to be presented back, Rob?
It wouldn't if there's criteria that the commission decides now and then delegates that authority to the mayor or to the city manager to make that decision.
Okay? So,
Or you can just have it come back.
so I could rescind that motion and make a motion that we approve item 12 with all 3 of the requests from the developer, with emphasis on item 3, that the city manager negotiate with the developer and come back with no less than 3 years warranty on the road,
On the new construction?
on the construction of the
On the
road.
new construction?
Yes, on the new
All right,
construction.
I'll rescind and second that revised motion.
All right, so let me make sure I understand. Does the city manager have the authority to approve the development order if the conditions are met?
Yes, with no less than 3.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to come back before the
Would
commission?
not have to come back.
Would
That's
not.
my understanding,
That
yes.
would.
And your
yes.
motion is for a 3-year warranty, is that what you're saying?
For no less than 3-year warranty.
Okay.
Motion, it's been seconded. Any other discussion?
Is there any other discussion from the board? Any discussion from the public? Yes, sir. Thank you, gentlemen, I appreciate
you.
your explanations.
With all due respect to the engineers, my name is Brad Yunt, 210 Lakeview Terrace. I'm an engineer myself. When someone says it's stronger, but it has a weakness, when it gets wet, it deteriorates, that's a concern. The strength is not the issue. We're not running dump trucks over that road. That would be an issue where you need strength. We're running passenger cars over the road. You don't need strength for passenger cars. What we do need is immunity to water levels rising. That land in 1975, that land was called marsh. 95% of that land was called marsh. Now it's good building ground, but it used to be marsh. So when I hear that limestone deteriorates in water, and certainly would do so if the
Sir, if you,
pH,
excuse me, sir, if you
then
would address your...
I'm concerned.
Excuse me one moment. If you would just address your comments to the commission rather than the
Okay.
audience. Thank you. Thank you.
I am concerned
Thank you.
that strength is not the issue, water is the issue, and we have a lot of it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other comments or questions? Okay, at this point, Mr. Schubert, if you would call the roll.
Commissioner Friend,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
No. And the motion has passed. At this time, we would move on to item number 13, which is Resolution 2016-01-639. This is a resolution that the city has been asked to make by volunteers who have been working against the fracking resolution that is before the legislature in Florida right now. We had a presentation last evening, and is Ms. Burgess or Mr. Spencer here this evening? Yes, there's Ms. Burgess. And we're going to call on Ms. Burgess to present for you her information regarding this statewide, requesting this statewide ban on oil and gas extreme hydraulic fracturing, acid fracturing, and any form of well stimulation for oil and gas in Florida. And Bay County has already adopted a resolution and I believe passed an ordinance against fracking in our area because of the damage to our fresh water and other issues. Ms. Burgess, would you like to come forward at this time? And I would like to say on behalf of Ms. Burgess, I've heard her presentation twice. She is a volunteer. She's not paid by any organization or lobbyist. She's here of her own time to share with citizens the information that she has found out and that she's presenting before the legislature. So with that, Ms. Burgess.
Thank you. This all started for a lot of us in this area when we found out that the Chula Petroleum company was going to be doing some seismic blasting in the area of Weewahitchka, and this blasting is looking for oil or gas, and it will be crossing the Dead Lakes several times and coming very close to the Apalachicola River and the lots of other tributaries that and it's as the crow flies on the next thing here. It's not that, the blasting area is not that far. I know it's hard to see on this, but basically what I did was I took the Deer Point Reservoir and map-quested it to Weewahitchka. But the area north of Weewahitchka there in a big circle is where if they find this gas or oil, they will start fracking because Chula Petroleum is a fracking company. So we don't want to see this. And as the crow flies, it's very close to Lynn Haven. If you don't know how fracking works, this is kind of a diagram that shows that they mix about 800,000 to 1 million gallons of fresh, clean drinking water, along with about 700 chemicals, and these chemicals have been proven to be carcinogens and can cause a whole host of illnesses to people that get contaminated. Anyway, they push this water, chemicals, and sand very high pressure down 1 mile to 2 miles, and then it turns and it causes fissures or cracks, and that's where you get the word fracking from. And it opens up the bedrock. It's never been done in limestone, but as you know, we have limestone here, so we're very worried about what will happen. This also passes through our aquifer. Our aquifer is interconnected throughout the whole state. It's the #2 largest producing aquifer in the world. And if you pollute one part of it, and what we're worried about is this limestone, the fissures can release these chemicals, and also it will release radium-226, which is natural underground, but lethal when released. There's mercury down there, there's lead, there's arsenic, and it's meant to be down there, but if you start releasing this stuff, you're going to bring it back up. They also pull the, when they pull the gas or oil back up, they pull about 40% of the now chemically tainted water back up. Most of that water actually stays down there and gets absorbed. But when it comes back up, it is a toxic industrial wastewater. It can never be cleaned, it can never be reused. So the chance for contamination is very, very high. And if you go to states like Pennsylvania, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, North Dakota, there are thousands of cases of contamination. There's whole cities that have been, their water sources have been contaminated, and we just don't want to take the chance here of contaminating our aquifer and Lynn Haven's water supply. This is just a chart that shows you in the middle there, it says that fracking requires around 5 million gallons of fresh, clean water. So that alone, I think, is a major concern, and that's just for one well. So you take that times 20, times 50, times 100, whatever, and start thinking about how much water we're using. This is a picture of a fracking well in the middle of a subdivision, and you might think, well, surely they wouldn't do that in the middle of a housing subdivision. Well, they do, and if your neighbor has gas or oil on their lot and they want to sell the rights, they have the right to do that. Lynn Haven should be able to regulate this, but the bills that are in the Senate right now and the House actually will take away the right for Lynn Haven to regulate this activity, and I don't think that's right. Taking away your home rule is not right. Back to this map, there were 30 homes that methane was escaping into their homes from the fracking well that had actually been plugged and abandoned. And in 2011 in Colorado, they had to apply for emergency funding because there were explosive levels of methane seeping into these homes. This is a picture of a fracking well with a children's playground in the background and an elementary school. And what that picture doesn't show is across the street is a beautiful street of gorgeous homes with 3-car garages, and that could be across the street from you if they allow this. This is what comes out of the top of that fracking well. This is the methane gas that you cannot see with the naked eye. It takes a infrared camera to see that, but that is what's coming from that stack. Just can't see it. So what we worry about is that the methane, along with any other contaminants, are seeping up and being, sucked into clouds, and then that those contaminants can rain back down on us and our groundwater and our soil. So the agriculture is something to be thinking about too. Do you really want that raining down on your crops? Here's a picture of an evaporation pit. When they pull that contaminated water back up, that's now a toxic, it's toxic water, can't be cleaned, can't be used, reused. They put it in open pits like this, and until they can do something with it. It's called an evaporation pit for a reason. In our hot Florida sun, it's going to evaporate, and again, it's going to go up into this cloud and rain down on us. So lots of chances for contamination. And fracking, the industry itself just took hold and went crazy from about 2000 to now. And communities, people, governments had no idea really what this was all about and the contamination that it could cause. But these evaporation pits are really awful. This is a picture of an evaporation pit. They call it, the industry calls it produced water, which is a nice way of saying, not saying that it's a toxic industrial wastewater. But anyway, 210 gallons of industrial waste water spilled in Cottonwood Creek in Colorado. 0 gallons were recovered. So just like the BP oil spill, when they have, when they have these spills, they really don't have a plan to clean it up. And like the methane spill in Los Angeles County, it's going to take months for them to stop that methane leak. So something else to think about. This is a picture of historic mining sites that where the vegetation is sterile, again, from that, all the toxins coming up and raining back down. You might ask, well, if fracking's so bad, why don't I hear about fracking pollution and fracking accidents? Well, this is a map of fracking accidents across the United States, and if you could really see that closely, those black dots are so condensed on top of each other where all these fracking accidents have happened. And Earth Justice is one of the groups that helps these landowners and homeowners sue the oil and gas industry to get compensation for their illnesses, their tainted water, and so it happens all the time, but when they do get paid, they have to sign a disclosure that says they will never speak about this. So here's another big problem. In Colorado, they have 17 inspectors to inspect these 47,000 active wells and 82,000 inactive wells that are supposed to be inspected every year, but it's happening everywhere with cutbacks. The first people to go are the inspectors, so think about that. So anyway, that's kind of a quick synopsis of fracking, and I went much longer last night, but I'm going to try and be brief today. Any questions?
Any questions from the public for Ms. Burgess? Any from the board? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
At this time, is there a motion for the city? Excuse me, please read the resolution first. I'm sorry.
16-01-639, a resolution of the Board of City Commissioners of Lynn Haven, Florida, requesting a statewide ban on oil and gas extreme hydraulic fracturing, acid fracturing, and any form of well stimulation for oil and gas in Florida.
Thank you. Is there a motion is there a motion for this resolution?
I'll so move.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Are there any questions from the board, concerns?
Yes. All too often, we have interested groups, like the young lady that just spoke, presenting the worst-case scenario. I always object to those types of presentations without them being balanced by the other side. Now, fracking is not a new technique. It has been used not only for oil and gas extraction, it has been used to extract sulfur out of the ground and many other products and chemicals that we use. Can there be abuses? Yes, there can be abuses. There can be abuses in operating a water plant, too, will we dispose of our sewer if we don't do it right? I cannot support a statewide ban because there are legitimate instances where fracking is a useful tool. Now, fracking is a new tool, name for the new tool, right? But it's been around. The Frosch process, F-R-O-E-S-H, is one of your prime examples years and years and years ago of being able to extract sulfur out of the ground. But techniques are identical. Now, I'm not making it up because I taught a 9th grade class on that. And I've had enough chemistry and organic chemistry, qualitative analysis, quantitative analysis. You can determine precisely the chemical content of any liquid. Before I got my final exam and got my passing grade in chemistry, they gave us a liquid. We had to identify the 4 elements that were in it. You didn't do it, you didn't get a grade. But I seriously object to groups of people coming in and asking for total bans on everything. Now, I don't care if every other city in this community jumps on the bandwagon and says that we should totally ban it statewide. That's not a good decision. That's an emotional decision. And I think we should be realistic to understand there are instances where these things are good techniques to use. Should they be regulated? Yes, they should be regulated. Should they be tested? Yes, they should be tested. But you don't ban the use of a technique on a statewide basis. And I'm not going to support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Shad. Does anyone else have a comment?
Yeah, I would comment, Mayor. I can't disagree with the Commissioner, not hearing the other side, but I wish, obviously we don't have the power to ban it across the state. We're not the state legislators, and this is just simply a resolution that sends a message perhaps over there. The presentation yesterday that we left out today, well, she alluded to it a little bit, is the House bill and the Senate bill that's there right now, and I haven't had a chance to research it myself, but just going based on the information that was provided yesterday, would remove local municipalities on having any kind of input to fracking in our particular area. So in that, where we do have authority, I would at that point want additional information on fracking so I can make an educated decision on behalf of the residents of Lynn Haven. So just in that is why I am support of the resolution to send the message to Tallahassee as we continue to do through the Florida League of Cities, and I believe Mayor has written some letters to that effect on our behalf, that, home rule. And home rule simply means the message that we continue to send to Tallahassee is, leave us alone. We represent our community, and we want to be able to we never want that authority taken from us so that we can continue to make the decisions, because we hear from our residents and we can make those decisions better, we believe, here in Lynn Haven. So on that respect, that's why I'm supporting the resolution.
I would respectfully disagree in that we don't have home rule on issuing license for drivers. There are certain standards that you need to observe on a statewide basis. And there are many instances, and you can use the DEP, the DEA, and all of those of saying there are standards out there that apply statewide, right, for consistency statewide, so that you don't have one city or county going this way and another one going that way. I think that's how you properly address and control this, is through your state legislature enacting the proper legislation, regulations on it, but you don't ban it statewide.
And I would concur with Commissioner Friend, because the resolution would take away our ability to have home rule. In other words, we would not have the ability to have refusal of a fracking well happening in the city limits, which I would hope would never happen. But the research that I have done, I did verify in several different sources that it does take 5 million gallons of fresh water run a fracking well, and 40% of that water cannot be reclaimed ever. It is poisoned and toxic waste forever, and 5 million gallons per well. So that got my attention. The other thing that got my attention is the number of earthquakes that are happening right now, not devastating earthquakes, but enough to damage homes and businesses all through Oklahoma, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes in the last 2 or 3 years, also in Texas, and they cannot get insurance on their homes because of that. And so in Florida, it would not be earthquakes, it would probably be sinkholes, and the insurance companies have already said that would be something they would not support at that point. So I do read a lot, I do research a lot, I do listen a lot, and some things do need to be banned. I would disagree with Mr. Shad. I don't disagree with what he said about fracking having been used in the past for other reasons and at different levels. But this is a nationwide crisis right now. It's not being regulated properly in the other states, and there's no guarantee that it will be regulated properly here. I'm disappointed in what's happening in the legislature right now, and I've been letting my voice be heard there. So anyway, that's my take on it, and I do respectfully disagree, and I certainly agree that Mr. Shad has the right to that opinion as well. So, anyone else from the public? Okay, at this time, we read the resolution. We haven't had a motion yet, right?
There was a motion and a second.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll to decide if we're going to request this resolution for Lynn Haven?
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook? Commissioner Shad?
No.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes. So the resolution has passed. Moving on to item number 14, and we'll try to move rapidly. The evening is getting late. Discussion and possible action regarding the donation agreement for Lynn Haven Bayou Park and Preserve. Do we have a staff report?
I just briefly cover, this is pertaining to the 91-acre park that we are partnering with Trust for Public Land and DEP for. It's on the north side of the development we were just discussing out at Mill Bayou, north of North Bay Haven Charter School. This is the donation agreement. There are 3 phases of this, if you will. The first phase is working together with, again, our 2 partners, and they're going to close the deal hopefully within the next month or 2 as far as purchasing the land, the 91 acres that this park will be sited on. The second would be for TPL, the Trust for Public Land. They're going to spend up to 2 years developing the improvements, passive recreational improvements on the site. And we had and it's still available online on Facebook and also on our website. If you didn't catch the presentation we did, about a 15-slide PowerPoint, please do. There's a lot of information on it. So that's the second phase of them developing all the improvements from the infrastructure, from the roads to the playgrounds, et cetera, and the buildings on site. The third would be the donation, which we have a document here, and we spoke about it last night at the workshop, where they, once everything is finished, they're donating this to the city. So this is the document we have in front of us tonight. It's been online since Friday, and we actually have a representative here tonight. If you have any questions that I can't answer, I'm sure he certainly can, from the TPL.
Is there any discussion or questions from the board?
Second.
Mayor, if I may, I brought up an issue yesterday about the deed restriction language in this agreement, Exhibit B, and that I have some concerns that it's an illegal restraint on alienation of the land because of the language that's used in that. And I spoke with the TPL lawyer, and he agreed with me. And so they are actively working on a resolution to that. So my recommendation would be, if you all approve of it, it'd just be contingent upon satisfactory resolution of the deed restriction language. The deed restrictions right now are just that we won't ever use it for anything besides conservation. However, there's some language in their proposed agreement that we can't dispose of the property unless we get their permission, and I don't. Both the lawyers don't think that's acceptable. So we're working through that. Correct. Approval contingent upon the successful satisfaction of deed restriction language.
And I'll withdraw my second and agree with his motion.
So there is a motion and a second, and we also have the representative here with us this evening. Did you have something you wanted to say, sir? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Hello, I am Doug Hadaway with the Trust for Public Land, and this is an exceptional opportunity. I know that your city manager made a presentation publicly last month, actually, introducing this project. For those that aren't familiar with the Trust for Public Land, I'll just say very briefly, we're a national nonprofit land conservation organization. Our mission is land for people to enjoy as parks and open space. I always have a feel-good message when I come and make presentations to public bodies such as yours, which is a wonderful job that I have. I assume that I've heard, it's been wonderful, if I may, working with your city staff, getting us to this point today, and I look forward to continuing working with the city, assuming that this commission, of course, approves moving forward with us over the next 2 years. This opportunity, of course, was brought to us because of early restoration money with the natural resource damage assessment funds. That is what came out of the BP Deepwater Horizon rig spill in 2010. That's all. I just wanted to say hello, introduce myself to you, and I look forward hopefully to be working with you and your community over the next 2 years as we complete this work and get an incredible asset, a jewel, hopefully you'll agree, for the city and the community and visitors to it. So thank you for the opportunity to say hello, Mayor.
Thank you. So we've had a motion and a second, and at this time, are there any questions from the public? None from the board?
I think we ought to thank the developer in particular for working to see that this gift happened. He didn't have to do that. We are going to benefit by one of the largest parks I know in this county. And I'm grateful for the fact that he thinks enough of our city to go ahead and do that for us. That is going to be a monumental thing for us in the future, to be able to lay claim to having that kind of a park and facility in our corporate limits.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to think that there might be something providential here, since we didn't agree to jump on the go get the BP money bandwagon.
Anyone else?
Guess we shouldn't ask if the roads are going to be lime rock.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Schubert, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and that motion is passed, and we are indeed thankful for this wonderful gift that we're going to be enjoying for many years to come. Moving on to item number 15, discussion and possible action regarding property addendum to the first amended and restated development agreement for D&H Properties. Do we have a report for this?
This is the development agreement for the 950 acres for Mill Bayou that we spoke about tonight already. And simply all this does is remove the 91 acres from that development agreement, so it's not subject to the development agreement. Obviously, this is going to be a public institutional park that'll eventually wind up with Lynn Haven. So all this instrument does is remove the park from the development agreement.
Is there a motion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions from the board? Any discussion or question from the public? Mr. Schubert, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Shad?
Aye.
Commissioner Friend?
Yes.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Ashbrook?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and the motion is passed. Item number 16 has been removed from the agenda and will be addressed again at the second meeting in February. And then item number 17 is public commentary. Is there anyone who has a wish to speak about anything at all? Ms. Tennell?
Get up. When you got too many knees, it's hard to get up.
Well, you've been sitting for a long time as well. So.
Thank you. I just want to thank the city and everybody that worked so hard to get our library moved over by the monument. I know the mayor had a lot to do with it, and the city manager did, and Mr. Jackson, I think he left. I was going to thank him. And
he's in the back, Ms. Tennell. He's back there.
Thank you. And Richard Walker, he did a lot of work too. And we're in the Heritage Group Society, and we're the ones that got together and restored Roberts Hall, and we're hoping the library will be just as beautiful as it is, and I would like to invite all the city to come to our meetings. It's the first Thursday of every month at 7 o'clock at Roberts Hall, so you're all invited to come.
Thank you, Mrs. Snell. Anyone else, Mr. Walker?
Make it quick. Thank you. Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. First thing, most of us have all had our cars stop at one time, and we find out the battery is dead. And we usually find out that the battery warranty was 1 day over. I look at the warranty you're dealing with on the piece of property there on that road. A case happened here in Lynn Haven a little while ago where the developer put in something per specs, per everybody agreed. 1 day after the warranty, it would have failed. And it cost this city $1 million. The city. Insurance didn't cover. Developer didn't cover. The money was going to be used, that $1 million was going to be used for the 17th Street ditch. Never got there. I would like to thank Mr. Shad for making my point. He said we don't like to take one step back. I pointed out that we worked for 1 year on the TND. We put a lot of time and effort into that. We tried to keep the bar high. That's one of the things we did. We worked very hard on it. And what I heard yesterday and what I just heard a few minutes ago, it looks like you're going to take the bar back. So thank you, Mr. Shad, for making my point.
Thank you. Other commentary or questions tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Arlene Harrison, 904 Michigan Avenue. As a matter of planning forward, I'm quite interested in when the block party is going to be.
The list of events right now, as it's slated out, it's just when it has been in the past on that same date, but it's not going to be verified until we meet again.
Okay, that'll work.
But that's tentatively, it's that last weekend in May, like we've had it in the past.
I was hoping so. Thank you.
That's where it is on the list, yep. If it's approved. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, this is different. My name is Cheryl Brown, and this is the first time I've come to one of your meetings. And I want to thank you so very much for inviting us to be a part of what you do in this community. I want to personally thank you, Mayor, for inviting us to a Christmas party that I just so much enjoyed, being able to meet you and feel a part of this community. Several years ago, I participated in campaigning for a mayor, and I've walked the streets of this city. I've walked them. And I have met people, and I heard what they said about the city commission and the government in Lynn Haven. And some of it wasn't pretty. But I appreciate being invited to what you're doing. And I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. Thank you. So glad you're here. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Kerry Odom. I live off of Arkansas Avenue, between 9th and 13th. Between 9th and 13th Street, there is a few through roads that have no stop signs. They're straight through roads. We've got a pretty serious issue with some traffic coming through there speeding. There's a lot of children. There's people walk the block, constantly bike riding, people walking dogs, kids playing in the road. I'd like to see what it takes to have someone come out and do a traffic survey and see about maybe getting some speed bumps or some other situation that'll handle this traffic coming through. You got people coming out of country club, people that come from the grocery stores, things like that, and you know, it's all times of the day, especially right around dark, it gets even worse. Our road is a 25-mile-an-hour zone. There's people come through there anywhere between 45, 55, 60 miles an hour. It don't take but a second for somebody to hurt a kid. And for the cost of a few speed bumps, there ain't a monetary value on a child.
Mr. Eder, what is your address again, please?
1010 Arkansas Avenue.
Thank you. I would like to ask the city manager and Mr. Baker with Public Works if maybe they could get in touch with you and meet with you, and if you could give Mr. Baker or Mr. Schubert your contact information, and
I sure will.
Go from there.
I'll write it down for you before I leave.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you all for being here. This meeting is adjourned.